screen, is that correct?
No.
No? Okay.
Should I go through these here?
All right, as we go along then, when they're updated with current figures, okay. Yep. So first up is general relief out of general basic. Administration is on page 1. So, Ms. Logan?
I'm hoping that this is going to be the easiest budget that you do all day. How about that? I think that's why maybe I'm first. So it looks pretty much like it did last year. The biggest variation that we have within our budget would be the number of funerals that we would need to cover. And you guys have been really good about modifying that. Dennis allows me to move our line items, you know, if it's a minor percentage.
Nothing to note then?
Not really.
Okay. Is there a motion to receive?
So move.
I'll second the motion by Potabom. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Passes 3-0. Second is assistance on page 2.
And again, you know, all of our line items are the same as they were last year. So I don't really anticipate that there'll be any different needs. I will tell you in our current fiscal year, we have had a lot more rental assistance in the last couple of months, but I will expect that that will go down because we've got both city funding and Iowa Finance Authority funding that will help with rental assistance. That will pay first before general assistance pays. You know, always, I know you know that this funding is of a last resort. So.
There's a bump in funeral services, correct?
Yeah, yes, that really is the most unpredictable. Mm-hmm. We've ranged anywhere from 8 burials a year to I think the highest was 27. It's just not really anything that it's best guess.
Okay. I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 3-0. Thank you. Next is item B, Department of, sorry. I did? DeWitt seconded. Yeah. That's all right. Next is item B, Department of Human Services out of General Basic on page 2.
Good afternoon. Thanks. I'm Matt Madsen. I work with the Department of Human Services. My office is in Council Bluffs, but we serve all of western Iowa, so 30 counties from Missouri to Minnesota and places in between. So first of all, we're grateful for a place to work. You know, the code, we're here because the Iowa code says that, you know, the counties give us a space to work and office equipment like you do your own departments. So we're grateful for that. And we're also grateful for the working relationship we have, like with the maintenance staff and with Dennis in terms of our budget. I think you're just looking, we'll do numbers first and have a couple other things that Dick is helping me hand out. You know, really the changes, we added equipment back in last year, Dennis, and maybe you guys have suggested we zero out equipment. So we did that zero back out, and then I think we got the word we could put 13,000 back in equipment for this FY19. So that's probably the biggest change. The other is communication. The cell phones, we're not spending as much money on postage anymore, but now our communication has been through smartphones, through cell phones with our staff, so they're safe when they're out in the field. Doing a child abuse assessments is kind of the basic at the root of that. So those really were the two changes. You know, I know it's, you know, numerically it's a big change. We were looking at, I think in FY12, maybe our budget was 180,000. In the last few years, in 16, we requested 121, down to 102, down to 88. You know, and we keep working really hard to make sure that, you know, for the size of building that we have that we work in, we really try to. It's incredibly small. I work with lots of the county budgets. Pottawatomie County is about 240,000 is what it costs us to run that building, and it's no bigger than where we are a couple blocks down the street. So Dick and our staff work real hard to try to keep that down. So those requests, those increases might look large, but I just think, you know, we act pretty reasonably, and Dennis is good at working with us. Something that Dick just handed out, I'll just run through that, and I will let you move on, is a piece that shows you guys get reimbursed. And part of the request, or there wasn't a request for revenue estimate, but I think probably for next year, I'd say our revenue would probably be about 200 for FY19, about 270,000. And at the bottom of that page where it says eligible for reimbursement, that shows the types of things that you're reimbursed for. So you own that building, the Trosper Hoyt building, and as part of owning that building, that cost advisory services, who the county contracts with, looks at what it costs to run that building. And we take the bills that you spend on our behalf on a monthly basis, those things that are in the budget. We add things that aren't in the budget, like just the heating, there's no utilities and those kind of things. We add those back in, and so that sheet you're looking at shows, for example, like in the FY17 column, there's the second column in says 341,000. That's what you got checks for that amount. Each quarter you get a check for about 80,000 that year. And then you spent 102,381 on us. And then so that's obviously there's some net revenue, but that offsets the cost of owning the building. It's not all gravy. I mean, it costs you to own that building. So that's just in recognition. The code requires us to reimburse you annually, and we do it quarterly with all the counties. So if you're looking for a revenue estimate for 19, I would say 270,000 might be a safe number. The indirect rate that cost advisory determines each year has been dropping. This year went from 186,000 a quarter to 161 a quarter from 17 to 18. So Potawatomi's dropped by 30% last year, and it has a lot to do with the county attorney time. Besides owning the building, they also factor in how much time the county attorney spends on juvenile court on our behalf. So,
Is there a sizable portion of the cell phone expense that comes in at the end of the fiscal year?
You get reimbursed for that like everything. Oh wait, well it comes in. Yeah, what happened this year is we're just now getting smartphones in more workers' hands.
Okay.
So we're just in the process of doing that at this very time. Our goal was to get it done by January 1, so that's going to bump up this year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's so small now and why we're asking for more. Yeah, end of this year and going forward.
All right. Any questions? Glad you like the building?
Yes, it's
Appreciate your,
we're in a similar, in Council Bluffs, we're in an old medical clinic, for example, that the county bought for about 300, just under 300, so they didn't have to bond for it about 32 years ago. So really those buildings, repurposing buildings like that works pretty well for our department. Generally, they're in parts of town where there's bus service where people can get to see us and those kind of things. So it's good in a variety of ways.
very
So
good.
Thank you.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C is the Board of Supervisors tab. First one up is the Woodbury County Solid Waste out of General Basic on page 38 of the section. Thank you to whoever numbered the pages.
Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, on the solid waste here, it's an allocation. We actually pay it quarterly to the landfill. The city's budget their share, the county budgets our share for the townships. It was agreed upon, a couple months ago. They signed an agreement, the solid waste board did, for the next 5 years, a 2% increase per year. So I took 2% time what we're actually paying this year. That comes to $206,609. We actually do get rent back for $62,500. It goes into the solid waste checking account out in Mobile. It doesn't come to Woodbury. But that's where we're at. It's 2% increase this year and the next 4 years. So we know where we're at each year on that.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 3-0. Second item under C is refunds from General Basic on page 3.
In this case, this item here for $20,000 is offset with $20,000 revenue, because actually monies that come into the county where we actually have to reimburse or refund them. Some are tax, erroneous taxes somehow got in, we have to refund them. or we might get an overpayment where you have to refund it too.
So no change.
No change. Kept same and the revenue offsets it.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 3-0. Next is medical examiner out of general basic on page 5. Thank you, doctor, for coming.
Dr. Tom Carroll, representing the Woodbury County Medical Examiner's Office. We've had some changes over the last year. We've had some difficulty finding people to help with autopsies, mainly because of retirement and surgery and whatnot. We do have someone that helps us, who works part-time at the State Medical Examiner's Office in Ankeny, but she and her husband farm up near Sheldon, and she helps us. And our current fee is $125, but we're paying $150 plus mileage, which is about $53, 110 miles. We would request that to be increased in January 1st. We now do our autopsies at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, so you're welcome to come and join us if you want to see how an autopsy is performed. But mainly to accommodate her 3 children she's raising, and her husband's a farmer, so anyway.
I've witnessed several. I never said I'd never do another one.
Anyway, any questions or?
No, I appreciate the smooth turnover and the work you've done. So I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by Potabom. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Next up is soil conservation. It's currently funded through LOST on page 39.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Christine Evans. I'm the district conservationist for Woodbury County, and I am here speaking on behalf of the Soil Water Conservation District. And if I have a short presentation for you guys I'd like to present. I wanted to provide you with some information about the history as it pertains to soil erosion, passage of the Flood Control Act, and perpetual structural agreements between the County Board of Supervisors and the Soil and Water Conservation District as sponsors for the Little Sioux Flood Prevention Project. It's probably about 11 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the Watershed Inspection and Maintenance Program in Woodbury County is an agreement between the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors and the Soil and Water Conservation District as sponsors, like I said, for the Little Sioux Flood Prevention Project. And, oh man, that's a lot of ways for me to see. Is this next?
Yep.
Okay. And you can just click next for me if you want to. Is that easier? Okay. So Woodbury County consists of 561,500 acres, and approximately 311,000 of those are highly erodible land. There's an additional 2,300 acres of potentially highly erodible soil in Woodbury County. Highly erodible soil in Woodbury County was formed under windblown loess deposits, and these loess deposits are very susceptible to erosion. Changes in land use have been a major contributor to soil erosion and flooding issues throughout the county over the past 100 years. In 1860, approximately 28% of our land was agriculture. By early 1900s, that increased to 96% of the state. Over the next several decades, advances in technology changed farming operations drastically. Pasture and hayland have continued to be tilled up for corn and soybean production, and this has led to severe flooding and soil erosion in Woodbury County. Here you can see a photo of 1930s compared with the same section township in 1960s. You can see the soil erosion happening in the first photo and it becoming much more severe in the second photo. Next slide, please. So after approximately 80 years of farming, a quarter of Woodbury County had lost half of its topsoil. Less was washing from the uplands into the bottomlands and plugging drainage ditches. Huge gullies were starting to form that were 20 to 50 foot deep and 100 to 200 foot wide. Next slide, please. This is an example of some of the devastation in Woodbury County. This is Wolf Creek, 5 miles east of Climbing Hill, the wooden bridge site after it was removed. And you can see on the photo like the people standing on top of the slope there, and there's one guy over on the right-hand side. This gully was approximately 60 foot deep by 200 some foot wide. So flooding and soil erosion was damaging Woodbury County's infrastructure and farmland throughout the county and the Little Sioux watershed. Lum Hollow watershed is another example of how this erosion and flooding was impacting our county bridges and roads. So erosion at this point was being noticed nationally, and in 1936, Congress passed the Flood Control Act. Shortly after, the Soil Conservation Service, which is now the NRCS, began watershed investigations to determine the most effective methods to control erosion and prevent flooding. The Flood Control Act of 1944 authorized SCS to begin work on the first 11 watershed projects. This included the Little Sioux watershed in Woodbury County. Local organization had begun during this time to address flooding issues and soil loss. The soil conservation districts formed in each county with the Little Sioux watershed to bring attention to the erosion problems on a local basis. Each district was represented on the Little Sioux Works Committee for overall planning. The Little Sioux Works Committee was responsible for setting up policies of cooperation with federal government and flood prevention work. So they connected with sponsors such as the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors and the conservation districts, which are both current sponsors for these projects today. They secured legal aid and they set up priority areas for assisting sub-watershed use. In 1946, the Little Sioux Flood Prevention Project was put into operation, and by 1991, there were 479 grade stabilization structures in the Little Sioux watershed. More than 8,000 miles of terraces were constructed, 457 full flow structures were built, and 193 structures were built to help stabilize the roads and eliminate costly bridge replacement and repair. So after 60 years of construction, there are now 470 flood control structures in Woodbury County. This is a combination of flood control dams, full flow grade control structures, as well as county road structures. These structures provide tremendous flood and erosion control for Woodbury County. Here is an example of Lum Hollow watershed, a before and after picture. And in the picture you can see old 141 is on the slide to the right. On the left-hand slide, it's just cut out. And that bridge was replaced by a county road structure. Next slide, please. Here is that same wooden bridge site and construction happening. I believe that was in the early 1960s. Next slide, please. And the wooden bridge site at Wolf Creek after construction has been completed. And these land management, so when these flood control projects were completed, we also implemented management practices and conservation plans within those watersheds to help reduce the flooding and the impact of these structures. Multiple structures were often built in a watershed along with terraces, waterways, filter strips, and conservation plans for no tillage and minimum tillage practices. The conservation practices within the watershed help to further reduce flooding. So when it rains, this slows down water and runoff after it hits the field, improving infiltration. So how is this a benefit to Woodbury County? There's a county-wide benefit in flood reduction estimated to be between $3.3 and $3.5 million annually. This is a reduction in cost for repair of county roads, bridges, and reduction of flood damage to communities and farmland. This also includes sediment removal from county roads, ditches, and culverts. NRCS and our sponsors, Woodbury Soil and Water Conservation District, along with the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors, became sponsors for these watershed projects and entered into easement agreements. Sponsors' requirements included being a unit of government, such as yourself and the district. Sponsors requested assistance from NRCS in addressing the flooding or other natural resource issues, and we entered into these agreements in which NRCS provided watershed planning, engineering design, and financial assistance for these projects. Once the projects were completed, there was an agreement for operation and maintenance as well. Responsibilities of the sponsors included scheduling and conducting regular inspection of dams, conducting public meetings, securing and providing funds for ongoing operation and maintenance, monitoring easement encroachment, developing and updating emergency action plans, and working with regulatory agencies. Woodbury County Board of Supervisors' contribution has been providing funding for the watershed inspector position. Minor repairs of watershed structures are performed by the watershed inspectors, such as tree and shrub removal and unplugging inlets and beaver dams, small beaver dams. This person provides annual monitoring for all watershed structures. They update databases and GIS information, completion of individual watershed inspection forms, provides education and works with landowners to keep them informed of all the issues and the responsibilities of those landowners, an immediate review of dams after large rain events. And these reviews are normally triggered by Dam Watch and the NRCS area engineer. So soil water conservation district contributions include maintenance equipment, conservation assistant who assists with managing funds and payroll. The soil water conservation district maintenance funds are used for major repairs and maintenance of watershed structures, hiring contractors for repair, monthly oversight of watershed duties, and performance reviews of the employee. NRCS contributes day-to-day supervision, training and guidance, office space, computer, GPS equipment, trucks, UTV, and engineering and design of repairs that are needed. So the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors' support for this position is not only important to the Soil Water Conservation District and NRCS, but is important to Woodbury County for continued protection of roads and bridges through dam assessments along with maintenance performed by this position. The joint collaboration and contributions, this partnership and sponsorship between SWCD, NRCS, and the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors is what has made the watershed technician, inspector position, and flood control projects in Woodbury County so successful. And we are asking for your continued support for this program. And that's all I have.
Very good presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't know if you guys wanted to see any of those original photos. They're pretty impressive.
That was in the presentation,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Thank you.
I just was giving strict instruction to bring those pictures back.
Okay. We will not move to receive them.
Right.
They were in the...
Yeah, they were in there.
I saw them. I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a more detailed breakdown included. Are there any questions on what we see?
The annual request for funding has been historically, last couple of years, I believe, $36,000, and that's what we're asking for again this year to fund that position.
I would move it.
I'll second the motion by DeWitt. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 5 is the public bidder out of General Basic on page 13. Made great strides in this area. No change requested.
No change, and you can kind of see a little history there. The figures you're seeing here are 5 month, and 1 week totals, because when you ran them, that's what we ended up with. So you look back on the history that they spent, basically this department here generates more money than they spent.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 6 is mail services out of General Basic on the next page.
Again, here we're going by history. This really doesn't generate money, but it's kind of central mailing systems. Some have their own mail systems because of the situations they have to have it right away. Pretty much it's the same, a shade less.
Sorry, what was that?
It's a little bit less, shade less than what it was the current year.
Questions? I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by Radig. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. 7 is district court operations out of general supplemental on page 28.
In this case here, we budget for 4 parking places on the parking ramp next to the courthouse here. The board agreed to do that when we moved them from the back of the LEC over to that parking lot. Telephone expense, we actually budget 25,000. We budget 25,000 revenue, so offsets each other. We're just kind of a pass through for their telephone because it's done in the auditors.
By DeWitt. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 8 is court-appointed juvenile attorneys out of general supplemental on page 29.
On this item here, we increased a little bit on attorney fees because we do pay a base, and then after the base is done through the state, we have to cover the juvenile attorney fees. These are all court-appointed, so we have no choice but to pay them. Mental health attorney fees, that runs, well, it's up 31,000. We only budget 40, so I don't know how the changes would come about there, but those are also court-ordered.
You don't know how the change is coming about there? Is that what you said?
Right. We only budget 40, we spent 31 in the past, we spent 82, 35, it kind of varies each year. So instead of inflating the budget, if we have to, we can do a budget amendment through the year.
Kind of hitting a moving target.
Yes. And I think that 82,000 was a makeup back in fiscal year 17. They hadn't submitted them, then I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, I think they brought a bunch down. They were previous plus the current, so we had a big influx for that 82,000. So I would say 40 is pretty close.
We're all just laughing up here at the
A tonnery.
fees.
Might want to check your spell check.
Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. Those autonomies, they just jack the rates up every year.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by Potabom. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 9 is risk management services out of general supplemental on the next page.
This item here, we levy the money in the general sup. We actually, after we get the $1.1 million collected, we send it over our self-liability insurance fund. This covers all of our workman's comp, all of our property insurance, and any lawsuits. And you never know when they're going to happen. We do have a fund balance that's about equal to last year, so the $1.1 million is right. It used to be $1.2 million, but we did reduce it down.
Hope we don't need it. Move to receive.
I'll second the motion by Radig. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 10 is Board of Supervisors expense out of general basic on page 7.
This budget here covers the 5 elected supervisors, and the expenses, they're basically under the board expense. We have mileage, we have travel expense. We will be sending out an update each quarter on current travel and projections for the year, so it varies each year, depends how many go to this convention, how many go to Washington DC, things like that, so it can vary a little bit.
Yeah, I asked Dennis to, at the conclusion of every quarter, to provide a snapshot of where we're at with funds spent, so we know if we're in line, and currently we are, correct?
Yes.
Based on past attendance at different events.
Correct.
Something like DC is at the end of the fiscal year, so it'll look like it's pretty low until that point.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Fiscal audit went up a little bit. That's because it's actually a contracted deal. We had a bid for the next 5 years. We're going to be in our second year next year. There are sometimes extra fees, filing fee for our fiscal audit to be filed with the state auditor's office, and then assisting preparation schedules of federal awards. That's an extra $3,000. Sometimes the costs run higher because we're trying to get down the road here a little bit where we have one software. We're going to have to do a lot of interpolation, double entry, things like that. So they've had to help us in the past. Hopefully start getting that corrected through the year. I think Pat and Mike are both working on that. in conjunction with us. And then we did list all your dues and memberships, as you currently have them.
For GFOA, do we have officials that attend any of those conferences?
So far, we have not. We used to go. I used to go to a couple of them. I think a supervisor went to a couple of them once. GFOA, to get our, we have to belong to GFOA to get our annual report award.
Okay.
And then hopefully next year, didn't get done this year.